Hello, and welcome. Thank you so
Hello.
much for joining us.
Hello.
Hey.
So, first, thank you everyone for taking an opportunity out of your day to spend a little time with us. This is our first of what we hope to be a many set of Kafka Coffee Talks, where we will look to bring in industry experts, discuss key relevant topics from various events, various announcements, and hopefully have a little fun as we go. For today's call, we're going to focus really primarily on some of the key takeaways and lessons that we all heard at Current a few weeks ago in Austin, Texas. Before we get going, we'd love to hear a little bit from each of you about who you are, where you're calling from, and what you do. So if you don't mind, please throw in your name and some of the information about your role and where you're calling from in the chat. That will help us, obviously work through this in a more personal way, but also love to hear from you at the end as we go into a Q&A. So with that, I'd love to first, introduce to you who we have on the call with us. So today I have the privilege of being joined by two industry stalwarts, Philip and Stéphane. And before we jump right in, I'd love for them to share a little bit about who they are and a little bit about their backgrounds, again, who you're listening to today. So gentlemen, why don't you share a little bit about yourself? Maybe share something that the audience wouldn't necessarily know by looking at your LinkedIn or doing the average social stalking we all do, right? As an example, Steph, maybe don't share how you're not allowed in Canada or Cancun, because we're obviously not allowed to talk about that, but share some things that the audience may not necessarily know, and I think that will help us connect with the audience. So Philip, why don't we start with you? Tell us a little bit about yourself and something maybe the audience doesn't know about you.
So the boring stuff. I'm based in Amsterdam. I have a very nice Labrador. She's female. I'm head of streaming, essentially driving the streaming products at Aiven, which is Kafka plus its ecosystem. But asking me this question, like what is interesting? Recently I had an anniversary. 11 years since I started dealing with Kafka. I started with 0.7, and I specifically Googled when I actually did this before this call. It was 2015, middle of 2015 when I started. So yeah, you can almost say that I grew up with Kafka in different capacities. We chatted before this call, like I have both like running it on my own, right, and on premise, and then for other customers like I do now. So yeah, really looking forward to chatting today.
Well, it's pretty amazing. Thank you for sharing and thank you for being here. Steph, why don't we flip it to you?
Yeah, so Steph, I live in the best city of the world. London it is, London, UK. I'm co-founder and CTO of Conduktor, so the data management platform on streaming. I've been playing with Kafka 07 as well, so Philip, same basically trend here. Part of my whole life, always in data. Kafka 07 was already good, and Kafka 8 was quite good as well. But yeah. Fun fact, except the Cancun thing, some people might know about it, but I'm a massive player of Dance Dance Revolution. It does not look like it, but I'm playing. So this is a rhythm game, if you know it, and I'm a massive keyboard player, like massive. And every time I take the plane, like London, New York, I'm playing on this game, but like crazy. And people around me are like, "What the hell is he doing, this person?" And then I switched to something very boring, serious business documentation, Kafka things, and so very fun fact. So if you know this game, please reach out.
Now I understand the why you asked for the dance off in the office last time we were there. I also know not to take you up on it. So thank you for sharing that. That's really exciting.
No problem.
So for today, I think there was amazing information, amazing, I think, conversations we had over our time in Austin a few weeks ago at Current. While we'd love to spend hours unpacking it, I think there was three key topics that were certainly very interesting. Three of us as we were talking about this, in Austin. So I'd love to frame those up a bit, and then we'll jump right in. So the first was around BYOC, or bring your own cloud. And is it the future of data infrastructure? What does it really mean for our customers and our partners? The second was around decoupling compute and storage. Again, certainly not a new topic, but how is that impacting performance and cost as companies start to really shift from batch-based to real-time streaming architectures and designs. And then the third is around the growing shift around shift left and the impact that has around data quality, data security, and emerging Gen AI use cases, specifically around trying to get quality and testing earlier at the source to start to reduce things like data pollution, accuracy, hallucination challenges. So Philip, why don't we start with you? Let's talk a little bit about the first one, and how do you think about BYOC? What is the future of it, and how does it relate to data infrastructure?
Yeah, so I personally have years already behind. If I look actually back 2 years in my career with Aiven, we are delivering bring your own cloud as a standard deployment option for many of our largest customers. And this is not a surprise. I even actually posted a blog a year ago almost, predicting that bring your own cloud should be actually becoming more and more prominent, simply because it is extremely useful and compatible with large streaming workloads. Situations where actually customers require the necessary flexibility. Also bring your own cloud brings, pun intended, brings additional cost benefits, especially for ultra large, let's say, infrastructure deployments, simply because they lean into their own savings plans on the specific cloud provider. Long story short, bring your own cloud is another deployment option, which is becoming productized. This is my short opinion, and I'm very much looking forward to bring it next to serverless, to hosted deployments, and of course, the self-managed Kubernetes deployments on Kafka.
So build on that a bit, Steph, if we can. So we talked about, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, there is something like bring your own cloud. One thing, there is no clear definition of this thing. Like everyone can interpret basically bringing your own cloud. Sometimes it's just, hey, we manage your infrastructure from our SaaS basically, but everything is on your side. Sometimes, and WarpStream, for instance, a really great use case, to be honest, they manage all the metadata on their platform, and only the data infrastructure is actually on the customer side. And this way, the SaaS never sees the data, but you don't need to manage all the metadata infrastructure as well coming with it. And so this is like BYOC bring your own cloud is a very large definition, but it just means that some part of your infrastructure is going to be on-premise on your side. And this is mostly for what Philip said, data privacy. I think this is the topmost thing, and cost efficiency. There is this, I would say also, especially in the GenAI era, your data are your asset as a company. So you may not want to give basically your data to a third-party provider that can basically train everything. You know that, Slack, LinkedIn, everyone is training on your data. Bring your own cloud, my data, my home. You don't see it. And I think this is why there is this massive shift actually to bring your own cloud.
Can you build on this a bit, gentlemen? When you think about, some of the drivers behind this, whether it's the cost driver, you talked a little about the security, the access drivers. What could you double click a bit? Like, what do you think WarpStream starts to do as you look forward for customers about really accelerating what they're doing with streaming, and where BYOC becomes, less of a hindrance, but obviously an accelerator?
Yeah. I am a personally big believer that with breakthroughs in streaming technology similar to WarpStream, we will actually open a lot of latent demand. And I just want to go and say it on record. Streaming data is expensive data. It's premium data compared to usage and daily operation with object store, right? It's sometimes 10, 20 times more expensive, right, for the same workload, or the same workload size. Because at the end of the day, streaming is all about data storage, right? We are storing very quickly data and we're reading very quickly data. But long story short, I'm not that concerned about some kind of disruption in the market, but rather unlocking of the latent demand, because those workloads which were kind of held back from the cloud because of cost reasons, because of, let's say, security reasons, because of sovereignty reasons, etc. Now they have a way out, right? And I am very, very hopeful and optimistic going forward that we will see more and more efficiency into the market. And ultimately, this plays well to the end user, right? It will provide you a more efficient, more secure system, which is vastly more scalable.
I think on the security part. So there is a way where yes, it's more secure because it's not out there somewhere that I have no access basically on the SaaS. But when you have to internalize basically on your cloud, your data and this new product, you also have to be really good at your own security. Because today, yes, the data leaks on SaaS, it is happening on external product, but the more bring your own cloud is going to kick in, the more people might want our data on our side because we are going to host it and everything, meaning that we have now to be very careful about all the surface of attacks regarding security. So I don't think it's it's not full security perfect. I think it will open a new, more security roles, I think, in companies actually bring your own cloud because they have to protect themselves now.
Yeah, because it's more about how they self-manage zero trust into the deployment cycle, right?
Exactly, right.
So let's pick it up. It's a good segue. Let's stay with you, sorry. So next topic around how does decoupling compute and storage, what is your perspective on how that impacts performance and costs, right? We're on this topic. Let's keep going.
So the separation, the decoupling of compute and storage, why? Because economics, I think, economics on how companies are handling their data. We are accumulating so much data these days. It's even part of our pitch at Conduktor, actually, especially streaming, but we keep increasing the amount of data we have to deal with. And today, up until today, or this technology where you separate basically storage and compute, the more storage you add, the more compute you add to add. So it was like, what the hell is this economics? Because my storage is actually growing probably way faster than the computing I need to do. And this is where now this is very efficient to have like, okay, I put all my data on S3 because S3 basically wants a game here regarding storage. And then you have a multitude of new new things in the middle layers to actually query this kind of data, so process your data and be able to be very efficient at actually connecting to your storage like S3, or like you can add a metadata layer like Iceberg and the rest of it. And I think this is why, because of this explosion of data, this is why this is happening today, because we want to have the separation and be a bit more cost efficient. And I think this is every technology out there, Kafka including with the tier storage. Postgres, I think, is going to kick in this kind of separation of processing and storage. I think this is definitely also the future of all the data exchange in organization.
So staying in there, the volume, variety, velocity of data, right? It's not certainly only going in one direction. The variability of it, the different fire hoses that are coming in that make up, right, what people are trying to apply. So it seems to be a growing, it's not a problem, but a challenge that people have to better get their arms around. So Philip, how do you think about this? How do you think about trade-offs and benefits?
Actually, I want to take a step back here and talk a little bit about the choices, right? The many different ways you can actually purchase or buy streaming service on the cloud or run, actually, because this is also an option, right? You can just self-manage. At the end of the day, decoupled compute and storage enables better throughput optimization, better cost profile, which is actually leaning into the use cases versus working against it. Also, it can provide you the necessary, let's say, knob to tune for latency, right? And cost, of course. Less latency, more cost. More latency, less cost. Of course, availability, by the way, there is something which not many people realize, but going forward, we'll see more and more globally distributed streaming systems. 5 nines, why not? We do have a lot of examples on the databases already, but we are lacking those in the streaming world. And actually, this leads me to my final kind of statement. I'm a bit unhappy. This is long overdue on streaming. We've seen this in the observability space, this decoupling, like 5 years ago, and we're now only going through this process. And I go back to my original statement. I think this will unlock a ton of latent demand, a ton of more gigabytes coming, let's say, to stream, right? And I'm actually really happy, even though it's a bittersweet kind of a feeling for me.
I'd be shocked that you always seem so happy when we talk.
Yeah, I'm Eastern European, and you can see my face always happy, right?
But on your point, I think these are things that these aren't new topics. They're certainly been discussed in various ways, whether it's the emergence of applied observability, whether it's more distributed databases and multi-vector databases, right? These are things that have been going on. So it seems like we're a little behind. So with that, let's move to our last topic then. And Philip, I'll stay with you for a second.
Sure.
So there was a lot of talk about shift left, shift right, and how data quality, data security, and emerging GenAI use cases are really starting to come front and center in the aspect of how data streaming, obviously can impact that, right? Could be an accelerator of that. Can you share a little bit about what were some of your takeaways as it relates to shift left? How do you think about how they can address some of the issues to improve AI and ML outcomes?
So I have a provocative point of view here. And when I hear one more time about shift left, right, I'm going to say, stop with the marketing, please, right? And why am I saying this? Because Kafka is already left. It is working on the microservice level. It is working in the operations department, under the CIO usually, right? It practically runs a company. If a company is already investing into streaming and wishes to create those real-time, let's say, experiences for their end users. So in order to understand what shift left really means, it's more, I like another marketing term, zero copy. For me personally, this is where actually we are all aimed at, because it attempts or takes a stab at solving one of the most important problems we have in the cloud, is moving data. This is the most expensive thing you can do on the cloud, move data from point A to point B, right? So making things happen earlier in the chain, where actually the interaction with your business processes and your users is happening, is almost inevitably beneficial, right? That's number one. But number two is what other experiences and what other features you can build for your business from the ground up, which are not lift and shift, right? Like I'm suddenly making my credit card payments go from batch to real time. What if I actually have a predictive model to catch fraudulent transactions as they happen, right? So that I actually move the needle on my fraud detection as a company. So things are starting to get built from the ground up. And this is really what shift left really means for me. Like, it's like Tesla, right, which is built around this breakthrough in batteries, versus lift and shift, kind of like gasoline cars into batteries.
Yeah, really smart. Appreciate the insight. Steph, how would you think about this?
So it's a big topic, to be honest, in a few minutes. So shift left, to me, it's not new in streaming. I think this exists. Shift left, you could see on Google Trends. It's like it's an old thing in data, to be honest. But I think we are coming to this kind of issues these days, where probably because of AI, I would say, your data, they end up in the lake, some things, and someone that does some reporting, and you have a feedback loop to the application teams, to developers, or to the data engineers, because they sit in between doing some stuff. So basically, you lose a bit the who owns what, who did something on this data. And I think by shifting left, you actually put the burden on the developers. I think it's really a burden, because we keep asking, if you look at the industry, we keep asking them to take everything, to do everything, from testing to this thing, to the quality, to the security, so the whole shift left things. So I had a good conversation internally where someone said, hey, we should have a shift left right. Okay, you shift entirely on the left and a bit on the right, because you cannot shift everything on the left. It's like, it makes no sense. A developer would do everything. Like, no, don't be serious. But I think this is necessary, because with GenAI or all these use cases, you cannot have data issues, like, because everything starts in streaming. The business, the operational domain is in the streaming world. So if you have something mistake in your streaming world, you are screwing many other things. When the data ends up in your data lake, it's not that critical, but it's basically reporting, probably, that you should get. So I think this is why this shift left is happening. I think nobody has the right formula today. Maybe except Conduktor, we'll see that. But yeah, we need to help basically the industry to be able to assess this, and to be able to get better at owning the data. Not just moving data, as you said, Philip, but owning your data. And I think this is the shift left.
That's really well said. And I think, what's old is new again in a lot of ways, right, these days.
Right.
And you both said this in different ways, but the ability to have true shared accountability where everything just doesn't shift to developers, where now they have to be more productive, more agile, more secure, right? It's kind of untenable if you think about it. And I think the ability to start to put policies, controls, accountability, tracking some of these things with, you talked a bit, Philip, earlier about the reliability, resiliency, availability type concepts. That can't all be on one team to make that work. That's the art of how do we collaborate and get more value out of data and not just make it someone else's problem that shifts left for them to deal with. So let me unpack one more thing. When you think about, right, there was, I can't think of another topic that was hotter in every single booth and every conversation. Was there any specific use case, or did you leave Current with anything more intrigued and more impressed about what people were doing with data as it relates to Gen AI?
I actually, on the way back, right, I was thinking how to brief my team on what we discussed and who we met there and what was the core topic. And there is something which I keep coming back. More and more individuals and companies are realizing that the hardest thing about data streaming is not data streaming. It's everything around data streaming. It's very easy to push some bytes through a broker, right? How do you version? How do you make sure that you have, let's say, data quality? How do you make sure that you connect your third-party systems? Everything around the main Kafka broker, or let's call it streaming broker. Why not? At the end of the day, it's all about data streaming, is the main part. And I think this is some already a very clear trend where vendors and customers are looking, hey, how can I do, for example, better, faster event-driven architecture? Why should I actually go through the toil to build? Why should I go through the toil to query my Kafka, right? And I think this will grow more because, I think Kafka or data streaming on its own, apart from the TCO and the deployments which we just discussed, is mostly a solved problem. What isn't is everything around it, which we'll see more and more investments into the future.
Well said. Steph, closing remarks on this. What do you think?
So on this, I agree, this is our mission. But I think one thing for me at Current, and it's mostly on Flink, it's, and GenAI actually, it's the way, and I think it's going just to expand beyond Flink, but all the stream processing aspect of it is to plug LLMs directly inside your stream processing. I think today the costs are still massive. You cannot query every bit of data, but I got into good conversation, and basically it's going to decrease. The cost is massively going to decrease of doing inference, and the cost and the latency as well. Meaning that if you decrease all of it, you can definitely put that into your Flink, but your Kafka stream or whatever technology you're using to actually have a stream processing application, but which will be actually calling an LLM and maybe a local LLM to avoid going, to an open API, something like this. And I think this is really the future. In a few years, it's going to be so massive, and it's going to be business as usual to do that. And today we are just seeing the beginning of it.
Yeah.
Well said, gentlemen. So let's do this. First, thank you very much for everything you shared. I hope everyone in the audience either took something away that maybe you're more interested to learn more about, or maybe we said something that will evoke more questions, whether it's to us or to someone else, right? The whole point of this is to continue to invest in the community. It doesn't look like we have any questions at this point, but I'll remind everyone, please send any questions. Although we can't comment on why Steph can't go to Canada or Cancun, we certainly can talk about any other topic as long as legal allows me. And I have to check in every once in a while. One comment I'd love to read out from Amesh from AWS, the concept of decoupling also being helpful to scale compute independently of storage, specifically in Kafka, is that it helps with partitioning, rebalancing. Interested to hear more about performance. So I don't know, gentlemen, if there's anything you wanted to double click on that call out from Umesh.
We actually donated the tier storage plugin, right, for the initial decoupling, right? And I can share some fresh data that, yes, this is the case, but only in certain cases. If you offload the cluster in a pragmatic way to tier storage, yes, you will see faster rebalances, faster upgrades, etc. But it's not a silver bullet at the end of the day. Yeah.
There usually isn't. As one great man once said, there's a lot of lead ones, but usually no silver ones.
Sure.
I think this is still. I remember I read a use case about that, but so massive companies, they're like everything before tier storage. Okay, hours of rebalancing, of doing something because they had to move the data basically. Went to tier storage, 2 minutes. 2 minutes to do, because you don't move data anymore. It's just a metadata thing. And I think this is a massive win here. Is we keep talking about compute and storage. There is also this big thing where we are separating the metadata and the data. Data is so massive that you don't want to play with them. It's too huge. You don't want to move. But metadata, today we are still at a stage where it's very small compared to data. And I think this is where the industry is going. You want to separate both of them. And this is what WarpStream was doing. This is what we're talking about here with tier storage. I think this is really the next evolution that we are already on actually.
You nailed it. I was going to say, starting where we stopped, or stopping where we started, the WarpStream acquisition, right? I was going to say, I think, doesn't that play into this? I would assume.
It does.
Yeah. All right. So let's do this. First, thank you again for everyone attending, and for those that watch this on the post recording. We would love for, again, you to share any comments, ways that we can make this better, or if there's additional insights you have on topics you'd like us to focus on. For our, wrapping call to actions, first, in line with that, we'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn or join our Slack community. We can love to keep these conversations going, learn together as we continue to invest in the community, and figure out what are some of the key areas of focus and things you're interested to learn more about. The second, we are going to be at the Data Streaming Summit in San Francisco. We'll be speaking and working with a lot of our great partners on October 28th and 29th, where the Apache, Pulsar, and Kafka communities will be coming together to share best practices, network, and learn about different things that relates to streaming technologies. So if you're out in San Fran, let us know. We'd love to see you and spend some time. And then third, please keep an eye out for our next webinars. Again, we're going to be looking to do a series of these. Hopefully continue to make them better as we go, more engaging, and we'll be posting details on that on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear key topics, areas that you'd like us to expand on, and if you'd like to do a talk with us, please submit that, and we'd love to get you scheduled. So with that, we'd love to thank you all again. Appreciate you taking the time for being with us. Philip, always a pleasure, my friend. Great to see you. Stéphane, good luck on the dancing. Again, I'm going to beat you when I come to London, so we'll work on that together. Maybe we put this in a webinar. We'll see. But from us on our first coffee talk, thank you so much for everyone being here. See you on the next one.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.